the things about MGTOW and Manosphere content is that in its essence, it is effectively decoupled from political polarities, meaning it's neither left nor right. And eons ago now, when Barbarossa talked about MGTOW, that was the context in which he talked about it. He never talked about it being left or right. And whilst it's true you can attach left or right to virtually anything, including Manosphere, MGTOW, EvoSite content, I don't think it actually has its place there. And this is a real issue, because anyone with a strong leaning one way or the other is likely to interpret things a certain way, and more importantly, they're much more likely to be for or against things, or at the very least have their own view of things. So I think we all know by now what the issue is with the left and Manosphere-related content, or MGTOW content. They don't want women to be talked about in certain ways, and they certainly don't want honest views to be expressed. Now, I will concede there are some really extreme people in the Manosphere, but generally speaking, trying to have a somewhat objective view of the interaction that exists between the sexes is a good thing. And because honesty is required in that type of analysis and appraisal, you're not going to get the approval of people on the left. So people then think, yeah, let's just side with the right. Now, it seems very convenient in today's atmosphere, for rather obvious reasons, that the right would be the first place one would want to gravitate to because, well, pretty much everything is left-wing that is in control, that is in charge. We have a liberal media, we have far-left policies in the universities, certainly on platforms like YouTube, it goes without saying. And so the natural tendency is to side with the right. No, I'm not right and I'm not left. I've always been a centrist. And one of the reasons I should state here for that is that I think things exist in equilibrium. I'm a bit like that druid, right, maintaining the balance. Don't push things too far, left or right, or you're going to get lots of problems. And so I'm not on the right, and yet most of the people I associate with, most of the people I talk to, lean at the very least right, or if not lean, are outrightly on the right. And why is that? That's just because of the current political order. It doesn't mean I agree 100% with them on everything. But I think when it comes to MGTOW and Manosphere issues and talking about the sexes in an honest way, there is a lot of distortion on both sides. From the left, we have the classic women can do anything, there's no difference between men and women, and we should just buy into that and accept it and not challenge that view, even though it's factually, historically, and biologically incorrect on almost every count. The idea that men and women are interchangeable, overlapping in virtually every way, that social forces, only social forces, are the primary powers that shape sex-oriented behavior. Rank nonsense, obviously. Now, you'd say, maybe, on the right, people think differently. They're more open about this. They think that men and women are perfectly complementary, and I'll have a lot more to say about that in a future video, an express video about that topic, and that there are differences, but these differences complement each other, and so on and so forth. At the same time, as all of us have noticed in the years being on the internet, that, let's be honest, the right isn't completely objective about male and female relations. Oftentimes, women are pedestalized. Oftentimes, they're given a hallowed position that likely should not be accorded to them. And whilst the right is willing to admit their differences more often than not, and some of them are even willing to say that's the primary reason why men and women belong together, because these differences complement each other, ultimately, which is partly true, but also partly not true, they would not, I think, ultimately, if they were in charge, want an honest appraisal and free discussion about the differences that exist between the sexes. Why do I say that? Because politically motivated people are not necessarily primarily interested in objective facts and analyses and observation. They will use these things to direct people towards their goals, to convince people, convert people. Sure, when it's convenient, and when it's not, things will be obfuscated, things will be omitted, things will simply not receive any mention. And that applies to both the left and the right. And this is why I, as an individual, as a content producer, but also as a human being who finds himself to be that druidic keeper of the balance, who doesn't want to see the extreme of either side gain ascendancy, have to say that I don't trust either side. In some other universe where the right were ascendant, you better believe that the discussions that people have, open discussions about men and women and the realities that exist between them, would not be permitted, any more than the discussions that are permitted in the current atmosphere with the left having gained ascendancy. They're essentially, in this regard, two sides of the same coin. And the thing we need to worry about in such a context is authoritarianism to the point of insanity. Why? Because that's what really cripples discussions. Some authoritarianism is necessary. It's why red lights exist and rules exist for crossing the street. Otherwise, some people, who perhaps are not the brightest of people, would not know when to cross and when not to. I mean, it only makes sense. But there are always these extremes and these polarities. The political order is inherently unstable. It could eventually shift back right, but what would that gain us? One thing I've noticed consistently on the part of the right is the inability to correctly analyze, the inability to arrive what I believe are the correct conclusions about what happened to relations between men and women. Most of them, in my experience, think it's a purely political thing, rather, not all of them, but most of them, rather than largely due to technological transformations, biotechnology like birth control, and what have you. Or they think there's something ultimately sinister and Machiavellian behind it. There may or may not be. I don't have access to that information. But more often than not, things occur organically, and then you're left with the organic consequences. And people will, of course, try to juggle with these organic consequences and try to figure out what's going on ultimately as a result. This leads to speculation. So whilst the left will parade around the glory of women's liberation and think it was all fantastic and women are the same as men, if not better, and the right doesn't do that, at least in the same way, there are deficiencies on the right too. And this is why I have always advocated, and I think will always advocate, for a non-politicized discussion of the sexes. Again, there are people in the Manosphere who have extreme views that are inaccurate. But I'm primarily, when I do talk about evolutionary psychology or male or female behavior, I'm primarily motivated to understand what's actually going on. I'm looking at a holistic approach. I'm not trying to approach it from a political angle. And this is something that anyone needs to be wary of when dealing with people. It's not that I think people on the right are bad people any more than I think that people on the left are fundamentally bad people. Although I know some people think that. People who are particularly very politically motivated, either on the right or left, of each other. And that is because most people think that they have good intentions. They think they have good intentions. They might even be blind to the consequences of those intentions and not be aware of them, but that's what they think. And so it's very easy to use the label of evil, if you will, to ascribe to people's intentions what they're trying to do. Most people are just lost in ideological fervor. I don't think of them as evil so much as I think of them as dangerous. But they have their views, and these views tend to be superimposed onto whatever might be convenient to their cause or not. I'm not looking for convenience. I'm looking for explanation. This will always be a difficult topic to address for the simple reason that women are our quote-unquote most valuable asset because of their wombs. They are the sex that objectively has more value in how they're treated, in terms of the funding they get, in terms of the help and support that they get. And this will also occur, albeit in different ways, in a theoretical right-wing society. It would look different, it wouldn't be identical, but you would get the same effect, and that is the effect of gynocentrism and our overwhelming favoritism that we show towards women. If only because most people find it very difficult to act in a neutral way to women, because neutrality in the context of women is viewed as cruelty. Ignoring complaints, ignoring quote-unquote grievances, ignoring this sort of thing, yes? That is viewed not as neutrality, but as cruelty, whereas the same type of thing is viewed as perfectly normal and perfectly neutral in terms of men. That is a matter of the circumstances that we live under and a sign of the times. Do I think, however, in an alternate universe that people who are obsessed with political correctness, the way the modern left tends to be, are the type of people I want to associate with? Absolutely not. The people I like hanging out with are people that just let things be said. I might not agree with them, they might not agree with me, but they're just words, and we say it, and we speak our words, and that's it. And ultimately, that is the thing that I think we should be striving for. Not some sort of far-right utopia that I think will ultimately fail for myriad reasons, or the current left-wing utopia, which is getting worse and worse by the day, and is obviously not a good thing to anyone with any sort of common sense. The very extremes of any polarity, perpetuated too strongly, too far, are always dangerous. So I think people who talk about male and female issues in particular, more so than any other issue, are stuck in the middle in a way that doesn't hold true about any other issue. Anyway, I think this is an important issue considering all the things we can observe these days. And this is why it will always be difficult to navigate discussions about sex differences, because each side has skin in the game to protect women and to make sure that they're taken care of, albeit in different ways, and to accommodate them as much as possible in ways that other things are not. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. And hopefully, if I'm still alive, there'll be more content to come. You take care, and as always, may the gods watch over you, and thank you for your support. Bye-bye. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.